Scott Lang. You're an Avenger. You have a daughter. But you've lost a lot of time, like me. We can help each other with that.
So in the trailer, there's the line, "I don't have to win, but we both just have to lose." You must know when you say lines like that they're going to end up in the trailer. Like, do you sort of know? And when you're saying those like one-liners, do you have to be careful not to like overdo it, underdo it? Like, what is the key?
Yeah. There are those lines. You think, all right, this line has some real weight to it, and I always feel like in those situations, as really in any kind of situation, you want to do it lots of different ways, so you don't get into a rhythm, and also it gives an editor some options or the director, and then you hope they pick the right one.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they might not.
That's absolutely true. Yeah.
There's a scene in this movie where you have, I'm going to say this is without spoilers as much as I can, you have a brawl, what I would call like a good old-fashioned brawl.
Yeah.
I was getting Rocky vibes.
Yeah.
Like you were sort of like the little guy up against,
Yeah.
But this was a different side than we've seen him before.
Right.
So how is it for you doing like a good old-fashioned fight scene? Usually you're zippy and you're clever.
Yeah, and it is kind of the case with, I think, a lot of the Marvel movies, just to have and certainly for Ant-Man, to have just an all-out fight. Kevin Feige reminded me today that the very first time we ever see Ant-Man, going back to the very first movie, the very first shot is Ant-Man getting punched in the face. So this seemed like it was kind of a nice full circle of getting punched in the face many, many times. It was great to you're seeing all of this stuff throughout the entire movie, and shrinking and growing, all of that, and all these amazing effects that then we have a fight.
Messy fight.
Yeah, and doing that against Jonathan Majors is no walk in the park.
No, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's intimidating. He knows what he's doing. He was getting ready to go shoot Creed after we filmed this, so he was in full fight mode, and it was amazing. I mean, it was challenging, and that whole sequence took a long time to do, but it was great. Yeah.
Cassie Lang, or the actress Kathryn, has said that you encouraged her to say the joke. Like, if you have a moment and you want to say the joke, say the joke. Like, just feel free, just do it. Was there anybody, if this was paying it forward, who was the person in your career maybe that sort of encouraged you to sort of get out there, do the one, like, say the joke, improvise, that kind of thing?
Oh gosh, I've worked with so many great actors and people that I've learned from or just kind of watched, and there's just so many along the way. It's tough to really just kind of like pick just one. I will say, I got to work with Jack Nicholson, and Jack Nicholson told me stuff, little things that like you can do. And the other thing that he did that it is still to this day just blows my mind. He did all of the stuff off camera. If we're doing a scene, he was doing off camera lines with me. And if it was on me, he would change things. He would do stuff because he knew what they might use, and he knew that if he did something some way, it was going to register in my eyes a certain way. He was the most giving, incredible actor to study, and I think, my gosh, Jack Nicholson. I learned some things from Jack Nicholson. I don't know how you get better than that.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Paul Rudd in Quantumania. That's what you get. That's how you get just as good, if not better.
Jack Nicholson was said, if you're going to climb 1,000 versions of yourself up a mountain, you got to grab your hand. You got to look right in the eyes.
Let me make this easy for you. You will bring me what I need, or everything you call a life will end.
where are you and Scott Lang as we start this movie? Like, because they have a date night at the very beginning of this. And I love that she just seems at peace with herself in this one. Like, they're really enjoying each other.
Yeah.
If you sort of break down how's the relationship going? Because at one point in some of the other films, they're just sort of getting together. Yeah. You don't 100% ever know if she really was into him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was so nice because we kind of did the moonlighting thing for a little while where it was like, will they, won't they? And then even in the second film, it was like, oh, they clearly won't. And then it was like, oh, wait, maybe they will. You know, it was back and forth. And this one is them definitively being a couple, which is kind of the thing I've been waiting for, because if they're definitively a couple who are in love and are really taking care of one another in real life, then the moment that the stakes go higher and the suits go on, it holds that much more potency and gravitas when one or the other is in trouble, or one or the other needs rescuing, or one or the other is hurt. And I think it's so fun to start there, to start with the peace and the beauty and the love and the date and the clinking beer bottles, and then just plunge them into the quantum realm and let them, you know, do what they're gonna do.
I love the moonlighting reference because I remember that show, and that show was amazing.
Yeah.
And do you think that these two would have gotten together had they just been like set up on a blind date?
Oh God, no! Not in a million years. They wouldn't have. When she first met him, she thought he was a bumbling fool who was a waste of skin. And it took a lot of time for her to be convinced that actually there was something worthwhile in there.
Oh my gosh, it's so cute. So I heard you say in another interview that you were actually in London shooting a lot of this. Brie Larson was shooting the Marvels.
Yeah.
And that you sort of talked about how the two of you had some really nice conversations.
Yeah.
And you referred to Michelle as Mama Bear, friend. So can you sort of talk about all that camaraderie that was going on?
Yes.
While you were away shooting this film?
And I'm going to add to that
Okay.
Kathryn Newton had become part of the cast. And so there was this beautiful thing happening where I was forging a relationship with Michelle, which felt very supportive, mutually supportive, and like really intimate in a way that I've never really been able to be with my co-stars usually, because often they're men, and there's just a certain amount of intimacy that is reserved for my man, you know, one man. And it's like you just have to walk that line very carefully, whereas with a woman you can just plunge right in. And, you know, in our case we could. And, and then with Kathryn joining, the first thing I did is reach out to her and let her know, I am here for you, I have your back, whatever you need. If there's anything going on that you're uncomfortable with, you come to me. I will be your mama lion. I will, you know, I'm a Leo, and I was like, anything that you need protection from or help with or advice to get through, like, I'm here for you. And that dynamic of the three, for me, was just an incredible big hug after having spent 2 films just surrounded by dudes. You know, and they're great dudes. They're great dudes. But it was a very new dynamic for me, and one that I really appreciated. And then Brie, of course, was just on the lot nearby. And I would reach out to her sometimes and just be like, well, how's it going over there? You know, like, what's your experience? I'd have like a really bad day and be like, is it any better over there? Or like a great day and be like, I hope you're doing great. And you know, it was nice.
Who are you? I'm the man who can give you the one thing you want. What's that? Time.
So first of all, I know you've said in the past that Kang's evil, his power, comes from great pain in his past. Yeah. What made him go to the dark side and the evil? Because a lot of superheroes channel pain for the good. For you as an actor, what made you go to that side? What made Kang go to that side?
For me, you know, there's no scale to trauma or pain or anything like that. But I think there's what you think is a lot of pain and a lot of suffering as an individual. And yeah, you can turn into a hero then, and a pretty great hero. But what happens when you understand the pain and the suffering of not just your lifetime, but other lifetimes? Wow. And if it's the only way to survive, you know, is to try to correct it in some way, you know. Yeah, maybe that will. Maybe then you may be labeled a bad guy. That may be too much, you know, to process. You have to combat it somehow, you know, and maybe that's how you get a Kang. Don't know.
What's his core? Because I know he's playing different versions. You've played him in Loki. You played him in this.
Yeah.
Is there a core of Kang that you return to?
Yeah, there's a DNA that I think a Kang is, and it's early days, but I'm just building it. It's artistic, I'm just building it. It's not in the scripts or anything like that, but it's what is it that makes this Kang a Kang? So when it's ready to be talked about, I'll definitely Fandango. Novak?
Yes.
I'll come to you.
In this film, anyway, there's a balance. There's some very quiet moments.
Yeah.
And then there's the rage moments, and one of them's in the trailer. And I know you don't watch your own work, but I don't know if you've seen that. And the eyes are glowing.
Yeah.
For you as an
He does that.
actor, when you're expressing yourself like that, those rage moments, is it cathartic? What does it feel like for you?
It feels like rage. It feels like rage. It feels like, oh, you've gotten to a point where you're getting something out. You can have emotion. It's when you the actor's job and our job as human beings is when we express the emotion. That's when you either get things done or get in trouble. You know what I mean? And it's how you do it and when you decide to do it. And so I rarely get to a point where I can express that type of rage. You rarely get to a point in life where you feel that or can express that. So yeah, it's an exploration, and it's taxing. You're adrenalized at the end of it, but then you realize on the way home, wow, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you just took your engine from 0 to 180,
Wow.
multiple times that day.
I know there's a lot of Star Wars references, and I did get a Darth Vader moment for 1 second when I saw you. Was there any sort of channeling of that? Any conversations with Peyton about that?
This is deep. This is the first time, well, I guess after last night, that the Star Wars stuff came up. I was like, Star Wars? What? You're like, well, Star Wars, where is that from? Like, maybe I don't know it well enough to feel and recognize the references, but no, there was no I didn't watch any movies, or nothing like that. I was like, I watched Star Wars movies.
Hannibal Lecter? Because I got that.
What you guys are feeling is the archetype, potentially, is the archetype of like a pure villain or a pure sociopath. Like that's what we all recognize that, and they're so iconic because they're so pure. Like Hannibal Lecter, Darth Vader. Oh, you go Genghis Khan. Any of those guys, like that's a very clear energy, And so, I mean, that's a huge compliment if someone is feeling those type of energy from Kang, because that was definitely the intention.
People still need help, Dad. That's why we made this. It's like a satellite for deep space, but quantum.
So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about Cassie and the fact that she has seen, like you've said, a giant bug in her room when she's 6. How has this affected her? Like, as we're meeting her at this age, how has everything that has shaped her affected her? Because we kind of assume she's going to be like a normal teen, and she's not.
I don't think you can be normal. I mean, first of all, nobody's normal. I'm proof of that. But I think that she grew up with a superhero dad. She grew up, and then got kind of has superhero grandparents, Hank and Janet, and then a stepmom who's a superhero. So I think she's just got good inspo. They're surrounding her and kind of showing her the ropes. And then her dad's gone for a long time. And I think that changes somebody. I think it's inevitable that she's going to be different. And what I kind of connected to was this idea of seizing the moment. She wasn't going to let anything go. She missed a lot of time with her dad, so she knows the value of every moment. So she leads with her heart, and she doesn't think too much about it. She just jumps.
What I loved about it is there was moments where you guys were sort of comparing notes, like, oh, this is the move. Oh, do you crave this when you're like superheroing and doing that kind of thing? But what do you think sets her apart from her dad? In which ways is she different from her dad in terms of like her power, the power she feels, and sort of her skills?
I think she's a little more open-minded. I don't think she has the experience he has to have helped him become the hero that he is. I think she lacks the knowledge and the wisdom. So she's not afraid. That's the biggest thing. And she's not scared of anything. I think you should be a little just aware of the repercussions of your actions, and she's not. She's fearless, she's impatient, and she's kind of a mess. So that's the difference. But the similarity is they're both just like everyone. They're just regular people.
There's always like a moment in a Marvel film where there's a one-liner, and one-liners are the stuff of legends. And I really think the line, "It's never too late to be a
Yes.
is going to become iconic.
Thank you.
So how do you think?
I hope so.
How was it sort of shooting that on the day? Did you say it a million times? Because you sort of know when you're saying lines like that.
I set it to a little mark on the ground, and I felt the excitement around the line. I think it's such a brilliant script. Jeff Loveness, like, just perfected Cassie, in my opinion. I was like, this is written for me. But I definitely thought about it. I definitely wanted it to be perfect. So I hope it was.
I know Paul Rudd, you said he encouraged you to say the joke. Like, say the joke, improvise, have fun, and do things, and sort of give you that.
Yes.
What was a line that made it in, or a moment that made it in, that was sort of like your moment that you kind of,
There's a moment when I first try to be a superhero, and I, like, clumsily fall, and then I'm like, okay, I have a suit, you know, and I, like, pose. That was improv, and there's other things, like, I saw it the second time last night, and I realized a lot of it was improv, and then a lot of it wasn't. The real key, though, to improv is that it creates an energy. It makes you laugh. It keeps it fresh. So even if you don't use any of it, because we always said the script, we always said the lines on the page, maybe added something at the beginning or the end, but we always said the words. It just adds an energy, and I think audiences can connect to that. And Paul Rudd, that was great advice. Don't hold back. Take the risk. Fail. Do the thing that's not funny. Because at least you can say that you went home and did everything you did. And this was an opportunity that I didn't take for granted. And I loved making this movie. I loved making a fool of myself. And that's because I trusted Paul. And I trusted our director, Peyton. They believed in me. So I said, okay.
Real quick, moving forward, what are you most excited about? I know we don't know where she's going, but based on the comics, is there sort of like a comic book reference or a character that you would love to sort of meet up with, whether maybe it's a past MCU character or one that we haven't seen yet?
Oh, geez, that's so difficult. I'd love to meet Groot. Wouldn't that be cool? Or Nebula. I feel like Nebula and her would, like, connect. I don't know.
I know she was an athlete in one of the comics. I think she should play golf in another one.
Oh my gosh. Now I'm waiting. Usually there's golf. I get golf in every project I'm in, somehow. Like, I use a club as a weapon. I'm playing mini golf. There's no golf in this one.
It's a secret universe beneath ours. What are you so afraid of? There's something I never told you.
Non-spoiler question. Where's their relationship as we pick up in this movie? How have they made up for lost time? What's their Facebook relationship status? Have they been having date night? Where are these two when the movie starts?
Well, I think for Janet, you know, having spent 30 years in the quantum realm and thinking at some point she was never going to get out, and then reuniting with her husband and her daughter, she's just savoring this time, and I think, you know, they're just spending every moment together, and kind of retired, really. That's sort of the feeling that I get. And, you know, but Janet has secrets, and I think there was a lot down there that haunts her. And so there's, you know, as secrets do, there's a bit of a separation and a guardedness about her that I think the family senses.
And as it is revealed over time, each of them have had other, perhaps, romances. It has been 30 years. A little bit of jealousy.
People have needs.
People have needs.
People have needs. Yeah, I don't think we thought about it a whole lot, or it was, again, the secret, the unsaid word once you got back together again. We were talking about it recently. I don't know how long, when the movie started, maybe 4 years that they've been back together again. And I think it definitely we're making up for lost time in terms of domicility. And we start off with a whole pizza family night at home, giving that whole sense of like pretty close and comfortable. And probably better for things to go unsaid, you know, as far as this huge, I mean, every time I think about 30 years, why didn't it make it 10 years?
And aren't we, yeah, I don't know why. Aren't we building a new house, or is that still in? Mm-hmm. Are we building a new house still?
By 3?
In this one?
In the last one, it just popped up on the beach.
Yeah.
Didn't it?
This one?
Yeah.
No, that was the first one.
That was the
This
first
one. I don't think that's in anymore.
No.
One thing I didn't anticipate, I had questions written, and then when I saw the film last night, I rewrote them all, because one thing I didn't expect was that you're essentially leading this film for a great part of it. There's a lot of physical action. that you were called on to do, some fighting and that kind of thing. Were you chomping at the bit after the last few to sort of dive into sort of more of a lead? Because it was so thrilling to see.
Oh, thank you. Well, you know, you're always excited to get more to do. Well, maybe not always, but I was excited because when Peyton had approached me, I didn't really know who Janet Van Dyne was, and she was actually the founding member of the Avengers, and she's like a real seminal character in the Marvel world. And he said, I want to bring her to life, and I thought, wow, that's really an honor, and that's super exciting. And didn't get a chance to really do that in the last one, so it was nice to show her some of her background and you know, that she was a real freedom fighter, and you know, how and her brilliance.
Is it just me, or it seemed like the Marvel one-liners are stuff of legends, and it seemed like you were just eating it up. My audience erupted when you had your moment on the bridge. There was 2 rapturous applauses during the screening, and that was one of them.
Right.
Just for you, those Marvel one-liners, they can be tricky, but it seemed like, was it me, or were you just enjoying the heck out of it?
Well, I was. I mean, yeah, it's always fun to have something to do. And in this case, I was not going to be leading the action by any means, so it was nice to have a couple of witty spots.
But you're really good at that.
Oh, thank
you. Every time
Witty
it
spots
lands.
like that.
Every time.
But it was a wonderful opportunity again. You know, a nice group. I enjoy working with all of them, and yeah, it's nice to have. I was very happy to come together with my aunts.
If somebody had told you 40 years ago, there's going to be a scene with a spaceship, and you're going to be steering it with it in a weird, what would you have said?
Probably what I said when I saw the whole thing for real. I said, "You got to be out of your mind."
I remember the look on your face.
Yeah.
You said, "You mean I put my hands in there?"
This thing, but this is where's the joke? I'm missing the joke. Where's the thing? And I thought somebody was messing with me. I thought maybe this is some kind of setup, you know, from candid camera or something like that. They put these things moving around and putting them all in. But that's the thing with this world. You can do anything.
The absurdity.
Yeah.
Is kind of the fun of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, how absurd can we be and get away with it?
It must. I was wondering, like, what it would actually look like for the two of you on the day if somebody had a behind-the-scenes camera and you got a green screen and you're standing on whatever and it's moving. How absurd is it?
Pretty absurd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
it
depends.
You know.
Especially, wasn't so much the ground was there. The ground was all real. But it was the thing when they added all those floating little insects and stuff going around where you would have to hold your hand up, you know, and there was going to be something eventually put there. You go there, a little higher. Is that good? A little higher, all right? And then and then you look at it and you go, look at that. Oh my God! It looks like I'm actually holding something.
Yeah.
Couldn't get over that.
I can get you hope and give you more time if you help me.
You've talked in the past about how Ant-Man has been a palate cleanser, but in this case, you're kicking off Phase 5. So what are the ingredients that were important to you? Did you have any conversations with Kevin? Because I felt watching it that someone gave you the keys to the kingdom and said, make the movie you want to make. It felt like there was a freedom in that.
There was, and it's kind of one of the things I've always loved about Ant-Man is when we started with the first one, there was freedom on that because we were kind of operating in the margins, right? He wasn't a full-fledged Avenger at all, and you know, he wasn't a super scientist, and like, you know, it was still a question in 2014-15, is the audience going to accept a superhero called Ant-Man who shrinks and talks to ants? Are they going to accept Paul Rudd as a superhero? And all these years later, fortunately for us, you know, they have accepted this character. And so now by the time we'd introduced the Quantum Realm, we got to make a third Ant-Man movie, which is insane. But if we were going to do it, I really wanted to show the audience something different. Like, the worst sin you can commit is to bore an audience and to do the same thing. So we had the answer in our hands. It was like, I want to know what was Janet Van Dyne doing for those 30 years in the Quantum Realm? She must have had a full life, and maybe this is also a great way to introduce Kang the Conqueror into the MCU. So to get a chance to sort of design this entire environment and put together, assemble this crew of crazy artists and come up with as many whacked out science fiction concepts as we could, I loved it.
Where does Broccoli Man come from?
Broccoli Man came from, we had our artists draw, just draw your top 10 weird characters that you might see in the quantum realm. We were going through reams of these things, and this is cool. This blobby guy, if you could make a photoreal version of that might be interesting. And then there was this one guy that, what is this guy? He looks like broccoli. And he wasn't. He had these stalks and eyes, but he was a broccoli guy. And then it struck Jeff Loveness, the writer, and me as funny. It's like, well, Hank Pym would look at that guy and just say, holy shit, that guy looks like broccoli. Just call it as he sees it. And that seemed acceptable in this movie. It was like, yeah, that's funny. Let's put this in the movie. I like it.
I asked Jonathan, and he was shocked that I said I had a Darth Vader moment watching him. Obviously, there's some Star Wars references in this film, some callbacks. If you can just speak to that a little bit. I know you're not surprised to hear me say that.
Well, listen, we all grew up with Star Wars. Star Wars is, it's our generation's mythology. And I've worked in the Star Wars world, I love it. But I liked the idea of doing something here that maybe took a dash of Star Wars, but also some Flash Gordon and some heavy metal magazine from the 70s or 80s, and a little bit of Flesh Gordon, the X-rated ripoff of Flash Gordon, and Barbarella, and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and all these influences that I grew up with and loved, and just make it weird. And then you send our heroes down there, and suddenly Ant-Man and the Wasp are the least weird characters in this environment. That seemed fun. But Star Wars is resonant just because George Lucas, decades ago now, created such a vivid world, right? And that's what has stuck with people, how specific it is. So we didn't want to copy or design anything remotely like Star Wars, but we wanted to have that specificity to this thing. And we wanted to take you to a place where it's we have an idea of kind of how the ecosystem works or how people respond or what the laws of physics are in this place. It's weird and it's different, but we've thought about it.